person who does not know a single letter, maybe one letter, but can they learn to read in just 30 days? And that also with just 15 minutes time investment per day. The difference was in the minormost disruption, but that had a major impact on learning. And that is going from known to unknown. Now, we've known that all along. All of us know about going from known to unknown, that we begin with a picture and not with a letter. And that is a major departure from what we do. So normally we'll teach the letters A, B, C, D, or now we do in phonics, we do letter sounds. But letter sounds and letters are unknown to the children, right? I can say that I started my journey in this field by asking crazy questions. And I was looking at, how I was so fortunate that I got a good education. That is in my, schooling here in Lucknow. And that enabled me, therefore, to be, privileged to attend amazing schools abroad, like my PhD and doctorate at Cambridge. And what if I hadn't that education? And also the realization that actually all of that education begins with that very first step, which we are calling foundational literacy and numeracy. And thanks to the government of India, the Ministry of Education, the new education policy, because it actually brought it to a fore. It made everybody realize how important this is. And as it happened, I was asking novice questions when I first came back to India after my 26 years abroad. And finally, when I came back, it was dawning upon me that we need to work with this particular endeavor on education more than anything else. My family runs the biggest school in the world, and it's called City Montessori School, Lucknow. So I sort of grew up to this school community, and always, my mother used to say that it's so easy to start a school. Baएं हाथ का खेल hai, literally so easy to do it. And so I started my first school at the age of 14. But then, when I came back to India after 26 long years away, I realized so many children, so many adults cannot read. And how is that even possible? So I started visiting slums, and also had a illiterate, if you like, though that's not the right way to call somebody who could not read is probably better to say. And that was my own maid, one of them, called Baby. Her name was Baby. And the only letter that she could actually recognize was Ba. And she could not recognize anything else. So she became my first test case, along with some people in the slums. And my question was, research hypotheses or question was, can a person who knows the language fully well, then they can operate in it, they can do everything in that language, and they're actually very amazing people because they're so creative, they manage their households with meager most resources that we'll find very hard to do ourselves. So how come that these people cannot read, which relies upon just a handful of letters that they need to understand and to know? I mean, it's such a small thing compared to what they already know. So can we use what they know as an advantage to teach them what they do not know? So there was a frenzy of thoughts, and I was just, going crazy, thinking, there must be a way, there must be a way. And on one of my flights back from Vadodara, something, came to my mind. I said, I'll go back to Lucknow and try that. So I tried that, and lo and behold, my God, I mean, I saw a dramatic outcome. Now, of course, we tend to be very incremental in education, as in like, okay, the next tweak would be, why don't we bring, say, enquiry into our classrooms? And that's, of course, a very new brand, great thing to do, no doubt about it. Montessori, Waldorf, constructivism. There's so many things out there now, flip learning, project-based learning, and a whole number of other, ways to cut the pie. But I couldn't figure out how to make these people literate. So the incremental changes that we do, like add this on or do a better English program or whatever, is nearly not enough. We need to be far more dramatic about our response. And this is what I learned in the journey that I've had so far. So what is the dramatic thing about it? The question was, can a person who does not know uh, a single letter, maybe one letter, but can they learn to read in just 30 days? And that also with just 15 minutes time investment per day, right? 15-minute lessons in a whole day. And it was an impossible question. Nobody would even dare to ask such a question. But I was deeply believing in the idea that it's possible that people can learn those 48 letters of the Hindi alphabet plus three ones we don't hardly use at all. That's 51. And in addition to that, the matras. I mean, that's really not a big deal. And lo and behold, this thing worked with baby. So when baby was with me and I was, I shared with her a sheet I made that day with my graphic artist, Aleem, I gave it to her and I said, give it a try. And this person, she was sweating, but she could decode those things and read 6 words in the first 5 minutes. And it was a hair-raising experience for all of us. And Aleem said, let me bring out my camera. And he took immediately a video, which is available on our website, the Devi Sansthan on YouTube. If you go there and go to Devi Sansthan, you will see it there. It's called My First Learner. Anyway, so what was different? Why could she read when all these years, she's probably had a dabble with trying to read? So the difference was in the minor most disruption, but that had a major impact on learning. And that is going from known to unknown. Now, we've known that all along. All of us know about going from known to unknown. It's a, well-researched thought process. We know about going from visual to abstract. We know about going from simple to complex. All of these things we know. But then how does it all magically come together to provide a different cast to our children and to adults? So the difference is that actually, let me decode it for you very quickly, that we begin with a picture and not with a letter. And that is a major, major major departure from what we do. So normally we'll teach the letters A, B, C, D, or now we do in phonics, we do letter sounds. But letter sounds and letters are unknown to the children, right? Or to the adults. So you teach them, B says ba, but B doesn't say ba. B says B to me, not ba. So somebody's teaching me, teaching me in the beginning, even in the phonics program, something abstract. And this is where it can string along for long, long periods of time and take too long for a child to come to the point where they can actually read sensible things. And here what we have is a picture. Now that's known. Remember that we wanted to go with the known, what they already know. Can we draw it as an advantage? They know that picture. And if they don't know, it takes no time for anyone, adults and children, to put that picture in their mind. It's easier to remember a picture than an abstract letter, for some reason. So they see a picture and they can tell what the picture is. And then they decode that picture as in the first sound of that picture. So if I see a car, I can say ka, right? So that is the crux of the discovery, if you like. But then how do you convert it into a program? Yeah. So we discovered that they can learn faster when they can decode on their own the first sound, rather than they're told this is a particular sound and they're taught it in the backwards way. When we also started to put sounds together. So basically we'd have 3 pictures, and for each of the pictures, the learner would decode the first sounds, and then the next thing they would do is to blend those sounds to make a word, right? So for example, car, ka, apple, a, tub, ta. Add the sounds ka, a, ta becomes cat. As simple as that. In Hindi, it would be battak, ba, sapera, sa. Add the sounds becomes bus. And they can read their first sensible word on day 1 in the first 5 minutes. And this girl, baby, she could read 6 words in this manner on the same day in 5 minutes. And this was such an empowering thought for her that, oh, I can read. In fact, we had that with one of my volunteers. At that time, he was here from America and living in the slums of Lucknow, and these amazing people, So I said to them, look, they were learning Hindi as well, that can you just collect data for me? So he told me the first day that there was a little booklet that we had made at the time, and this learner, was coming to his classes in that slum, Akbar Nagar. And he said after he had done his 15 minutes, he said, "Can I borrow that book? Can I take it home? Can I teach now my wife?" So this was so beautiful because this person could understand that this is really easy. You look at a picture, you draw the first sound, you add the sounds. There's nothing rote, all cognitive. It's all coming from the mind. Picture is known, the sound I can derive, so it's known. The sounds I can add, that's known. Therefore nothing is unknown. So I need to know the process by which I can learn by myself. And so then I got so excited, and I saw also we took this to a particular school that I run as a laboratory school. It's called City International School, Lucknow. And that is, a CBSE K-12 school. So I took it at that time that's 2014, to my children, saying, would you like to just go to the nearby slums and villages, gather some people, bring them to children and adults, bring them to the school and try to teach with this booklet that I've made. I made a whole bunch of copies of it. And it was just remarkable because these kids enjoyed doing that. They loved teaching because they figured out how to teach now, and the learners figured out how to learn by themselves. And in that program were my two children, my ninth grader and my fourth grader, and both of these kids were in the program. I saw the results. I got absolutely excited by it. I printed 80,000 of these toolkits that year, gave it for free to so many schools in Lucknow, like 150 schools of Lucknow, Unnao, Barabanki, and Kanpur. So majority of the schools were in Lucknow. I put all my staff, they go to every school and say their children would be interested in doing this program, and we'll give it to them for free. We gave out 67,000 of them to children, then to NGOs, including dear Kiran Bedi ma'am found out about it. I invited her to Lucknow. She took it back to Delhi, and I went to Delhi to present it to her NGO. So it is something that dawned upon us that there is a far more disruptive way to teach foundational skills. Then how long does it take? If an adult is focused on just reading program and 15 minutes a day, in a month they can read a newspaper. And this is exactly what's happening. They're just two formulae, two mantras, two sutra that they need to know. And with those two, they can discover the whole language on their own. And the first one is the one I mentioned to you, Battak ba sapera sa, basa becomes bus. That's all. That's the first formula. If they know that, they can do 8 pages in this very thin booklet, and they can learn how to read bina matra wale shabd, without matra shabd. Now comes the matras. So for here, there's a second formula, and everything is known to unknown. First, the known picture as a support to know the sounds, the first sounds, and so forth. And the second formula is simply, you already know from the previous 8 pages, ga, a, and ya. So you know all the swar, all the vyanjan, and all you have to do is learn that a becomes a danda, a stick in the next version of it. So ga, a, ya becomes ga, a, ya becomes guy, and you show a picture of a guy, of a cow. Done. And that formula, if they understand, that's known to unknown, again, they know all the 3 sounds from before. We don't call them letters, and they can add the sounds, but the a becomes another symbol within the word. And on that page, there are 3 types of activities the children do, and with the 3, they are able to, within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, master that particular matra. Now, I'm not saying master, but at least they can decode and blend, and they can figure it out, and they can read full passage just with that one matra. And similarly, 13 pages later, they can read any passage you give them. So we do Jangarman, we do, writings from different faiths, because it's an education for equity, it's an education for inclusion. And, we also teach them how to, take care of themselves, the hygiene part, we have road signs, but all of that in something like 30 pages, literally 28 pages. And then on top of that, we have got the writing part. So that's another 8 pages. And you're done. Basically, that's it. to learn how to read, write, and do arithmetic, read and write for the rest of your life. That's a foundation stone. If you are able to read, you can then read to learn everything else, literally. And so, that encouraged me a lot. We had 67,000 children who had got going and some NGOs. And we collected, then we obviously converted to other languages. We gave it to the rest of the country. I think it was 9 different states that got going. I had it in 13 different languages. I tied up with some big NGOs that they can take it across the country as well in schools. But I was not satisfied because I felt that, it relies so much on a volunteer to go to a place and then do this, or a student volunteer. Of course, that's all very nice. There is that huge worldwide campaign that started in the 60s called Each One Teach One. So obviously these children whom I gave it to were privileged children who were going to private schools who know how to read, and they could find somebody. I took it to the government schools also, but I felt there was a lot of volunteer need to motivate the volunteer to do something, which isn't the way I think a lot of people today see learning. They see learning as, oh, exam pass karna hai. I have to, do my next test. And even parents, sometimes they're not as supportive, saying the child has to learn himself or herself. Though it is only 15, 20 minutes a day for about a month of the summer break, is still, we felt there was a bit of okay, pushing it a bit, though majority of the kids did a phenomenal job. For example, 2 girls that I remember of City Convent School of Lucknow, they adopted 23 children across the street in a slum. They even rented with their own pocket money. They rented a hut there and taught them every day during the summer, hot summer. And sorry, I should say 26 children they taught, of which 23 were mainstreamed into government schools. And I think this kind of work is so phenomenal. But I wasn't satisfied because I wanted to see that it goes to every child. And majority of these kids are in school already, but they're not enjoying learning. They're not learning these fundamental skills for many, many years. We say 3 years minimum, they should be able to read, but then often they're not able to read in grade 4, grade 5. And that's not just the government schools, by the way. Our own schools, I think a lot of grade 4 children have trouble with matras. Grade 6 children have trouble with matras. Hindi is not being taught in this way. And so children are struggling a lot with Hindi. And same with English. In fact, English has become so popular with the government schools now. And we're also putting this in our private schools across the country. So, and it just started 3 years ago. The school-based model took me 8 years to come up with. So I was working with schools in Hamirpur, district of Uttar Pradesh, then in Lucknow. 6 schools government allowed me to work with and do my trial and error there. So finally, of course, it was something that came to be, and we are calling it as of 2022, which is when I first floated it to the government of India. We're calling it Alpha, Accelerating Learning for All. And I took it to the Secretary for Education, Anita Karwal, at the time, who was also, in her previous role, was the chairperson of the CBSE board. So she was a very wonderful person to connect with, because she was contextualized completely into education and really, saw the value of it and said, let's do it. And, very rarely you meet people who say, let's do it, because they'll say, oh, I don't know, it'll work. I think it might take too long. This may not work at all. I don't see how it'll work. There's a lot more skepticism than there's acceptance. So I took it to her and she said, yes, absolutely, let's do it. I know, Sunita, this will work. And so then I was given by her 2 of the 10 what she called low-performing districts of India. And so one was in Uttar Pradesh called Shamli, it's near Delhi, and one was in Odisha called Sambalpur. So in those 2 places, we began the work with the schools in 2022, in the fall of 2022. That's exactly 3 years ago today. And I knew that people, because along the way, I found a lot of skeptics, a lot of government people even saying, well, we don't have a problem. Everybody can read. And so that kind of skepticism. And then people were saying, no, it won't work in 30, 45 days. It's just impossible. And so I wanted to have third-party evaluation. And this is where my story kind of becomes even more interesting, because then I invited Professor Fernando Reimers and his students who are doing master's level in education policy at Harvard Graduate School of Education. So I requested that they can do the research scrutiny on our first implementation that was in Shamli in Uttar Pradesh. So they did. And that was, a 40-day trial, just 40-day trial. And at the end of which, the results were presented. So it was a research design, what we also call as RCT, randomized controlled trial, in which you have schools that are implementing your change and schools that are not implementing your change. And so this is called the non-intervention group. This is called the intervention group. And both groups are given a baseline assessment at the beginning. And then at the end of, say, 40 days, in this case, they're given a end line assessment. So end line just 40 days later is pretty remarkable in of itself. But we did that. And what we found, like grade 5, the fluency doubled in the intervention group. And the what's called effect size, which is basically the improvement that was seen in literacy, was 0.23 for grade 3 and 0.89, which is a whopping amount for grade 5. So it was in that range, the rest of them. And that became the best observed, worldwide best observed impacts on FLN. We didn't have to do anything. We just had to provide the booklets, train the teachers, and they got going on their own. Many teachers did not start with it saying, oh, another thing from an NGO, what happens with even private sector. So they don't want to necessarily embrace change quickly, but many did. And we had 66% of the teachers that actually implemented that change. And the result was that a district that was considered rock bottom in the districts of India in terms of literacy and numeracy, that district in Uttar Pradesh, out of 75 districts, was also near the bottom or at the bottom. And it came up to rank 18 in 2023 when November the tests were taken. So that 40-day, and we did it again for another 45 days after that, a much bigger chunk of schools. It led us to get a lot of contracts in Uttar Pradesh. Now we have, at the moment, from 3 years ago till date, we have 7,600 schools in which we are currently active in Uttar Pradesh. There's 4 complete districts: Lucknow, the capital, Unnao, Barabanki, and Shamli. So now we're working again with them because each of their new kids, teachers need to orient their minds to a new pedagogy and so forth. So I think we're seeing that having an impact at the India level now, because the Parak test that just took place, in that, Shamli has come in the top 5 on every criterion that were measured in Shamli. That was a low performing district. So I think at macro level, when you get data like that, you have to believe that this is actually delivering and actually working. Private schools also, my own family-run school, very skeptical. Obviously, it doesn't mean you're in the family that everything will be accepted. And we tend to rely upon the principals to decide what they want to do. So I invited one of the principals, a senior principal, to my experimental school. And I said, come and see what's going on here. And she was so impressed. She said, I really want this for my campus. And so that led to, in 23-24 session itself, a pilot, a research pilot in her campus and one more. And half the children got alpha and half did not, this accelerating learning for all. And we again did the same RCT design, and voila, the results were so much better. So today, what do we have? We have, starting from that 1,000 children in the pilot, today we have 21,000 children of this school, City Montessori School, following the alpha pedagogy. So in 3 years, it's grown very big within the system. And also with the government schools, it's grown to a whopping 35,000 schools. And that includes entire states of HP and Jammu, division of the Jammu and Kashmir. And we're looking at Kashmir right now, and we're really imminently hoping to get that. And many states have started to do pilots and RCTs and so forth. So in 3 years, this is possible only because we can show through results that children can learn foundational literacy and numeracy a lot faster than we've been doing through the old system. So basically, other realizations, because we are in a research laboratory here with so many kids, teachers, parents, parents also can rebel and say, look, we prefer the old way, or we prefer another way. So a private school, and for that matter, government school, cannot take the risk unless you can showcase results. Now, one reason for the results also is, which is something that I discovered along the way, that is when children work in pairs, they learn a lot more. And so like we took a picture and we took the first sound, we took another picture, kept next to it deliberately, so that first sounds add up to make a word, like battak ba, sapera sa, basa bas, right? So similarly, we thought if two children are working with each other, one child will ask, the other will answer. But we don't stop that as bari bari. It's like, okay, both children are equal when they're learning. And we don't need to differentiate who is good, who is not so good, and one is teaching, the other is like, no, they are playing equal roles. So now the other child will ask me, and I will answer. And if I answer correctly, the other child will give me a high five. If I get it wrong, the child will say, try again. So that, learning is so much richer. I had never thought that. We're literally covering a private school, let's say a grade one, grade two child, grade three child. We're covering 1 year more within the 4 months, 5 months of the school year. So there's no rushing with the syllabus or near exam time, rushing through, finishing the bits that are left, everybody under stress. Kids are way above the grade level. And this is entirely possible because we are capturing those lost spaces within the learning. So there's a lot of time wasted because they're waiting for the teacher to tell which next 5 words I need to work on, or the teacher to give a dictation, or the teacher to show me my numeracy activity, or 5 questions I need to do at home. I'm constantly waiting for the teacher. Here you're unleashing a process. The process is that how do I learn with each other, by myself, but of course now with each other. So we demonstrate that in a classroom. So one teacher, one child, always in the front. It's not like a teacher alone. So teacher also, we say random pairing. This is another very amazing thing we discovered. Is going to really change how we teach in the future, because even the new education policy says we need to shift from the idea of teaching to the idea of learning. And how does the transition happen? I think most people would wonder, how do you shift from teaching to learning? And that's not happening. Teachers are still teaching. And yes, you can make classrooms child centric. You can even do think, pair, share, like you do in constructivism, 10% of the time, 15% of the time, 20% of the time. But it's not necessarily empowering the children to learn by themselves and with each other. And with that comes the agency that the children needed always to go and do it by themselves. So we have these puppets called Tina and Toto. So at home also they're doing Tina, Toto and learning in their pair. What is this? What is the first sound of this? What word do you get when you add the sound? So this thing becomes a huge support, not just because they get these wonderful new friends, but because they can really learn and learn and learn and practice, and because they figured out how to do it by themselves. So that was a second discovery, that learning with each other is very powerful. And the third discovery, of course, is that if you do that learning not as, let's say, the teacher selecting, oh, you are good, you're going to sit with so and so, you're not so good, you're going to sit with so and so, that kind of thinking we have to drop. And a lot of times we've sort of been intellectually convinced that it's better to pair children because personalized learning, or, in a certain way. And if you're going to group them in a certain way, it's all by ability. We're saying drop that thought of ability, because you are prejudicing a child to think that I'm not capable or I'm capable. Both are bad. And the work by Carol Dweck, the growth mindset and fixed mindset. And so fixed mindset, whether you think you're really good or you think you're not succeeding, both are very bad for a child's future, or any adult's future as well. We need to think everyone as, possible of growth. And this is where I think the process enables it. So we're saying in the morning when the children come, first thing the teacher does is random pairing. So how do you do random pairing? Teachers have come up with a million ideas, but one of the very basic ways is write a chit of every child's name, put it in a box, and close your eyes, take out two chits, and those two children are the pair. And like that, they can allocate pairs every morning. The advantages of that, a lot of teachers in the beginning would say, well, it's not going to work because my kids they don't want to move away from their friends. In one government school, we had these boys saying, we're not going to sit with girls. That was real. Not going to do that. And he's my best friend, I'm not going to move away. So we pair them, but they somehow find their way back to the friend. So but now teachers have started to believe themselves, and I think that's a transition we needed in order for it to work. So they can see, how are the teachers convinced? Initially, no. majority of them. It's like Anita ji believe, but maybe 80% of them will say circumspect about it. 10% will say, wow, this is great. Maybe 20%. And there would be at least a handful who will say, no, it won't work. I'm not going to try it out. So that's okay. We get a whole spectrum. But those in the big middle, when they start to try it out and they see that my children are having a lot of fun when they're working with each other, they see a learning classroom. They see even those children who are running around the classroom earlier, hyper kids, that they're now settled. They see the shy kids in a 1:1 setting are actually speaking up. They start to notice the benefits. And so it's not the dialogue, it works or doesn't work. It's like, wow, yeah, I can see it working on this level or that level. And they share among themselves. Like one teacher in, say, Shamli, Arvind Kumar Balyan. I mean, amazing. He would send videos on this WhatsApp group more frequent than everybody else. And we could see that there was something going on here, and because he was doing it, other teachers in his school started to try it out. So it has started to also not just be accepted by the governments or by the private sector, but now more people are becoming believers. And I feel that belief is at the heart of anything new that we do. If you don't believe, so there are many ways to believe. One is to try it out and do it and believe. The other way is to say, so and so has said it or done it, like Einstein said it, or so and so said it. Let me try it out. Let me do it with some belief, but mostly like circumspection. There's some that say, oh, yeah, this looks really good. I'm going to give it a go. Doesn't matter. But once you've tried it out and wholeheartedly, without messing around with it, without mixing it with old approaches, I think you can see that more will convert to it and believe in it. I think there are also, two fundamental beliefs that we have to challenge ourselves to. One, of course, is the belief in the pedagogy we are following. Now, many of us don't believe in the pedagogy we are following. We may believe in some of it. We may be very proud of our school that we're doing such great things, and rightly so, right? But somehow, when we are like City Montessori School, principal says, "Look, we are the best school in the world. We're the biggest in the world. We are, so amazing. Why should we listen to anybody else?" Now, that is a problem, right? Because there must be other ways to cut the pie. There must be other ways to run the show. There must be other ways to give agency to the children, which is so necessary. And the new education policy is new. It's saying you have to do all those things, So we came up with this idea that belief is a starting point. And number one. Number two, belief in the children that they are capable of learning by themselves. And I think that is a big, big, big problem, because many teachers, including a beautiful principal whom I met some years ago, and I was sharing with her my ideas and things that we're doing to cut to a classroom. And she said to me, she held my hand and she said, "No, Sunita, it doesn't work like that. You see, you've got to tell them what it is. How will they know otherwise?" And that led me to really research that even more deeply, because I felt that God has given us our logic, our abilities, which are far greater than we have even touched upon in our current education system. That I was not willing to accept that premise. So that's when research got even more directed towards those goals. And today we have teachers who are seeing, for example, Smita Dikshit, who is a teacher in City Montessori School. She's a grade 2 coordinator, and she is also teaching grade 2 mathematics. And she texted me. She said, "Ma'am, I'm super impressed. I had no idea." She was teaching even and odd numbers. And normally you would teach a grade 2 child very simple numbers, like, maybe up to 100. These kids were making wild numbers, like in thousands and tens of thousands, and saying this is even, this is odd. They were color coding it. Pink, I think, was even, and orange was odd. And she sent me this snapshot of her kids doing, with understanding all this and with each other. And that was a transition. So she now is a believer that, yes, kids can learn by themselves. We don't have to teach everything. We have this, the power of abstraction that we never invoke, which we should invoke. And we all have it. So, picture to sound, and then the sound to the letter. Letters, you can see the letter and you can abstract from it. And then you can read those letters easily. So we're invoking all those different powers. And today, I feel that it's time now to engage the wider education community to actually come into a discourse and see, not just alpha, but see how education can be so vastly different. Of course, the research we have done, the data we have got is fine, but I want them to agree to some kind of a macro framework that we can go forward with. And they can, of course, add to it, take away from it. But the ones we have come up with is called PATH, which stands for uh, PATH, which stands for purposeful, active, transformative, and holistic education. So it's a derivative from the Panchkoshas of, our Vedic Panchkoshas, a derivative from our, new education policy, the NCFs that we have got. And basically, for me, education from that derived together would be a path forward. And that path would be purposeful, that we know, okay, I need to go from here to Chandigarh. So I need to decide which path I want to take. I can go in a particular on a particular set of roads. I can take another side roads. I can go a scenic view, whatever. It's up to me to decide the path I want to take. But I know my destination is Chandigarh. Now, how do I go there? Is also another issue. So, what vehicle do I use to get to Chandigarh? I can go on. Let's say I can walk. That'll take a long, long time. I can go on a bicycle. I can take a rickshaw, and then I can get into auto rickshaw. I can take a car. I can take a bus. I can take a train. I can take a flight. So I think there are different ways to get to Chandigarh, and what we're saying is that we need to evaluate those ways. But we know the purpose. We know where we need to go. And also, if we derive from the NEP the idea of active learning, so it's not just constructivism. It's not just, for a bit of time, teachers still the master puppeteer calling the shots. You kids are going to do this. All of us are going to face each other. We're going to do this activity for the next 10 minutes, half an hour, one period, and again tomorrow. That's still the teacher leading the show, telling them what to do, but not necessarily how to learn by themselves. And when we do that, we are flying to Chandigarh. We are not taking the Ekkatanga over there. Something to think of. So active learning has proven to be very powerful, but active learning has many definitions. The definition we have come up with is the idea in Alpha that the children are learning by themselves, and therefore they are learning a lot more than we ever thought possible. The third term is transformative, and transformative, of course, means everything changes. So if you look at the NEP 2020, it's highly transformative. It's asking no more teaching, learning. No more teacher-led, but child-centered. And we can say in Alpha, we're talking about also child-led. Children are leading the show. Once they're empowered, they know how to learn. They can just go on for hours and hours and hours. And at home, empowering the teacher differently. So the teacher's not doing all the rigor work, like, for example, homework correction. I mean, teachers take stacks of work home. And at the end of it, it leads to very little. Why? Does it lead to very little? Have you thought about it? Do we get time to think about it? I think teachers, are so busy implementing what's asked of them that they don't have time to even engage at that thought level. That why are we giving homework? Or what kind of homework do we give? How do we monitor? Kids are doing, not doing. So many children don't even submit their homework. There's a wild goose chase constantly chasing these kids and the system. But really, at the heart of it is, what maybe, of course, you must have all heard about Professor John Hattie and his great big meta-analysis of research, over 80,000 researchers from all over the English-speaking world, and he did a meta-analysis of that. And in that is very clear conclusion among 252 factors that either help improve learning or some of them might be decreasing the learning. So in that, a very high effect size is that of instant feedback. And you all have heard the word and terminology instant feedback. Delayed feedback, on the other hand, has no benefit at all. So teachers spend hours correcting those homework sheets, bring them 3 days later, a week later. How many teachers can bring it the next day? Kids' reality has moved on. All that hard work the teacher put into it has gone to waste because it's not instant feedback. It's delayed feedback. So a lot of now schools are doing instant feedback. But again, the devil is in the detail. How do you do that so that's even more effective? For example, can we engage the children to provide the first level of feedback to each other? How do they do that? What's the control of error? Like in a Montessori terminology, the idea of control of error. So lots and lots of issues. I don't want to go into too much detail about one, aspect of it like homework, but suffice it to say that transformation means a lot of change at the same time. It's sort of like having a mobile phone versus a landline phone. This can do so much more than just the landline phone. And if you say that landline phone will convert to this, no, it won't happen, because this is based on totally different principles. And because it is based on all these other principles, it can create what it is. It's not just that the wire is not there, it's not just used for calling. And it's not just this or that or the other. And an old grandmother will first, only use it to call, right? Hello, right? That's all. And what we're saying is that she will over time discover, oh, it has this. This is really good. You leave it with her for 3 months and have somebody help her. 3 months later, you come back and say, can I have my mobile phone back? The grandmother will say, what? No, beta, this is very good. Now she will explain the benefits of it. I don't need a wire. It remembers the last number. I can play music on it. I can take pictures with it. I can do selfies, all the things she will now tell you what are the benefits of this machine. So till you try it, till you give it a chance, you won't know. And that's what we have said to the teachers that, try it out wholeheartedly, and then let us know how it goes, But that little window to open up to, the possibility things can be vastly different and better. So that's the third term. That's your transformative. That comes again from NEP. And the fourth term is holistic. Now, we know that NEP talks about a holistic education. What does holistic mean? Of course, you're talking about academics, you're talking about, 360-degree development of the child, values, and so forth. So we have sort of summarized it in a nice way, like 4C skills, which are the 21st century skills mentioned in the NEP, and we all know them. That's collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity. All four need to be not just add-ons to the existing system. So we say, okay, this month we're going to focus on collaboration. Next month we're going to focus on communication. Classes don't communicate. Majority of the time, class is listening to the teacher, 70%, 80%, sometimes even more, and 50%. But here we are saying exclusively children are communicating. They know how to communicate. They know not just how to ask questions, but how to frame questions, how to put them at the different levels of each other, how to co-create learning. I mean, there's so much communication involved, and collaboration, and critical thinking, and creativity. Teachers have become super creative. They never thought that they had such creativity in them. And they're like, wow, I didn't know I could be so creative. And they're excelling, they're enjoying, they're having such a good time. We have further challenged our teachers to also do research. So we're hosting this Ed Leadership Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's 15th to 17th. And again in November, end of November, 27th, 28th, and 29th of November. So these teachers who wanted to prepare their research and have submitted it, we are evaluating on 13 criterion. They know the criterion are very visible to them. And they're going to get their fellowships at Ed Leadership. This is the conference called Ed Leadership International Roundtable. You can check it on the net also. Invite you, to join at least online if you can't come to Lucknow. And you can hear from the practitioners how it's going for them. But these teachers are psyched. They are so excited. Their workload has gone down. Their efficiency has gone up. Their happiness and well-being has gone up. Their kids are learning more. Kids are learning English like they never learned before. Little ones, they can speak in English. And they go home and say to the parents, speak in English, please. And they are teaching their own parents English and so many other things. So I think I've not gone into numeracy. If you wish, I can, how that works, but it's also vastly different. Any subject, learning of any subject is vastly different. And again, we're saying that, look, I mean, in a very potent formula of it, which is because government schools already have their textbooks, that a potent formula of it has been made for the government schools. That's your 45-day intervention. We used to say 90 days. So you're right, Nissi, when you said 90 days, that was earlier. And now we've been able to show that that's too long. In 45 days, it can be done, all of it. And in less time, if a teacher is a good believer and gets going with it. So after, for the private schools, what we have is textbooks, because we can actually replace the textbooks. The textbooks are year-long textbooks. And so parents feel supported, the teachers feel supported. It's a wild new canvas of working going on here in the laboratory. And we've linked it to our project for the government schools. So any kind of benefit we get from it goes to the government schools. So it's actually, a very good way forward. I'm very excited about what's coming, and I want everyone to join the Path movement, even if they don't agree or want to be on the sort of the flight to Chandigarh. That same flight, they want to go by train. That's okay. Any other way is okay. But at least we agree we have to go someplace, and we agree what that place is, and that's of course defined by the new education policy. We just made it simpler and easier to digest for the average teacher, because that's like a big long Pothi. Very hard to know all of it.